so many people don't actually understand happiness, and I think that's a huge root cause for leading unfulfilling lives. So, happiness is subjective well being. That is, it's up to you, it's subjective. You have control over the level of happiness that you're experiencing. It's an emotion, though. So, happiness is going to come and go. So, the way that we like to think of it in the science community is that there's a set zone of happiness. Think of it, for the sake of this video, on a scale of 1 to 100. So 1 is like you're the most miserable person ever. 100 is you're a ball of electricity. You're just ecstatically happy. 50's in the middle, kind of just average happiness. Most people will have a zone somewhere in there that is their equilibrium, their default set zone of happiness. So on that scale of 1 to 100, you're somewhere in there. And when something good happens, you tend to fall above that line. When something bad happens, you tend to fall below that. So for example, let's say you win the lottery, you get a huge promotion at work, you find the love of your life, or something incredible happens. What's going to happen is your set zone, say it's a 45 to 55, your level of happiness is going to go from that set zone up to like a 75, 85, maybe even a 90 or higher. But what you'll notice is that after a week, a month, a year, much more time passes, that amount of happiness is going to kind of start going back to your equilibrium, your set zone of happiness. The same applies for the opposite direction. What you'll notice is that maybe you get in a car accident, you lose your job, some tragic, traumatic thing happens in your life. So on that scale of 1 to 100, your set zone, somewhere over here, the 45, 55, you're going to actually fall below that. Maybe you go to a 10 to a 15. After a week, after a month, after a year, a little more time passes, what you'll notice is that you'll actually start to come back into that set zone of happiness. So this is our equilibrium. This is our default set zone of happiness. And it's really tricky because typically we've thought that you're kind of stuck based on genetics, your upbringing, your values, the way you see the world. It kind of just puts you in that bucket. But what we've realized through positive psychology is that 90% of your long-term happiness can be predicted by the ways in which you see the world around you. And only 10% of your long-term happiness can be predicted by external factors. And what is so cool about all of this is you can actually take that set zone and you can move that and actually improve your natural set zone of happiness by rewiring your brain. So the big question is, well, Jeff, how do I do that? What's like the thing that I can do today, right now, to improve this? The first thing you can do is random acts of kindness. This involves sending a text, an email, making a phone call, out in person, anything you can think of. Volunteer work even is such a good one. Put some good out into the world. Do something kind, do something sweet for someone else that has nothing to do with your own ego. Step outside of yourself, plant those seeds of positivity out into the world. Doing good is good for the soul, and it's just a good thing to do. So 1 is random acts of kindness. Number 2 is meditation. I've talked so much about meditation on this channel. I could go on and on and on about all the benefits, the scientific explanations of it. But meditation is one of those things that will absolutely change your life for the better. It's really, really hard, and it's supposed to be hard. I've talked to so many people who are like, I've tried meditation, but it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. Like, oh, why don't you think it works? What's wrong with it? Well, it's really hard. Oh, how many times have you tried meditating? Well, I just tried it this one time. I was, at my house. I was kind of bored one day, and, I took your advice. I tried to do a guided meditation, and it was useless. So it doesn't work. Not for me. And it's like, that's the point. It's supposed to be extremely hard. Part of it is the journey to get through that disciplined effort to come out on the other side in a mindful state. So I have a whole video on that explaining everything about it, but Meditation is the second step to actually rewire your brain for positive thinking. So the third thing you can do is journaling. Is another thing I've talked about endlessly on this channel. Journaling is so good because it takes all the stuff in your head and dumps it out onto a page. I personally think, and as some of the scientific research suggests, it's actually more effective to write it out physically than to type it on a computer or type it into your phone. If you're gonna have to do it that way, that's fine, but I find it works best if you're actually physically writing pen to paper. This gets your thoughts out onto a page. It clears your mind. It empties all of the gunk that's been sitting there throughout the day. Notice a lot of people have talked to me about ruminating thoughts, overthinking, a mind that just can't sit still. They're laying in bed and it's like, I can't stop thinking. My brain won't stop. And journaling works so well for this. So right before you go to bed, pull out the journal, write things you're thankful for, talk about things you're anxious about, write things that scare you, talk about goals, aspirations, dreams, anything that's on your mind. Dump it all out and just write. Don't even worry about the format or the grammar or anything. Get it out and you'll be amazed at what that does for your mental health. So that's number 3. Number 4, exercise. Exercise is one of the best things for your mental health. Obviously, there's so much to be said about proper form, proper exercising, when you should do it, how you should do it, all that. This isn't an exercise channel. There's so much good content out there for how to actually do this properly, what works for you, your body type. Everyone's different and everyone is at different levels in their exercise journey. But what's fascinating about exercise is that it teaches your brain that your behavior matters. You're actually moving something heavy. You're pushing your body past its limits and doing something to change your physiology. Your muscle structure actually changes. The chemicals in your brain will do amazing things for your body. There's so much that goes into this, and it really creates dramatic shifts not only in your body, but in your brain as well. So those 4 things, random acts of kindness, meditation, journaling, and exercising. So you do those 4 things as much as you possibly can. I like to have a daily routine. 7 days a week, I'm doing something to pour into these 4 buckets. Now, from someone who's never done any of these things before, typically what we see is about 21 days before you start seeing habitual changes, thought patterns adjusting, the behaviors actually becoming more automatic. It can get up to 66 days plus, depending on where you're at in your mental health journey. There's a whole lot of factors that play in here, but what we've observed scientifically is that around the 8 to 12 week mark, you actually see significant neurological changes in your brain. So that's super cool. We actually see huge differences in your life, in your body, in your brain, observable things that change your life for the better. So that's kind of my rant on happiness. I think I've been wanting to talk about this for a bit. I made a video on happiness where I talk about all of these things, but there may have been some nuances I missed, and there may have been other things that weren't covered as quickly or concisely. So this is my rant on happiness. I truly hope it helps you. And the goal here is to minimize misery. Life is extremely unfair, but it's also fair because it's unfair for everyone. It's really challenging. It's really difficult. It's annoying. It's frustrating some of the time, but it doesn't have to be like that all of the time. So the goal here is not to live a life where it's permanently happy. Happiness is one emotion. There's an entire spectrum of emotions we need to feel and experience to live a happy, fulfilling, joyful, and happy life. So keep that in mind. We don't want to experience toxic positivity. We want realistic, normal, healthy versions of happiness in our lives. And by doing these things, you can cultivate that in your life. Remember to take care of yourself. Remember to take care of those around you. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for hanging out.